We're going to praise a case study which is pricing anomalies and arbitrage in container transportation in India. This is based on the analysis of India's rail haulage charges and position arbitrage opportunities research paper written by Amit Upadhyay in 2021. So imagine a single train carrying the weight of a small ship. In India, this isn't science fiction, it is the daily reality of double stack container trains. Here is the landscape we are operating in. We have a complex ecosystem involving Indian Railways, which owns the tracks and infrastructure, and container train operators, or as we call CTOs, who own the trains and pay rail haulage charges to run them. This industry is exploding. We are seeing massive investments in dedicated freight corridors that will soon double our capacity. The goal is simple efficiency. A double stack train is 30% more cost effective than a single stack one. But beneath this massive steel infrastructure lies a hidden invisible anomaly the contracts that is costing the system millions. Now we talk about the challenge that is the position arbitrage paradox. Here is the problem. Indian Railways wanted to incentivize double stacking, so they offered a 50% discount for containers placed on the upper stack. It sounds logical, right? But this pricing rule created a loophole. The total cost to move a train now depends unduly on where a container sits, not just on what the train is carrying. Imagine you have a heavy container and a light one. If you put the heavy one on the bottom, you pay full price, but if you swap them, putting the heavy 24-ton box on the top, you get a 50% discount on the expensive heavy box. This creates a very big incentive. CTOs are financially rewarded for making trains less safe by raising the center of gravity, increasing the risk of derailments. They're incentivized to perform unnecessary and productive crane movements just to game the pricing formula. It is pure arbitrage, risk free profit generated solely by exploiting a pricing glitch. Now let's talk about the status quo, which is a silent efficiency killer. Um, so, what is happening right now? CTOs are actively exploiting our supply chain value. Our analysis of 250 trains show that operators are saving an average of 450 million rupees annually by shuffling containers to exploit this glitch. They are engaging in the time arbitrage too, delaying cargo for days just to wait for a matching train configuration that lowers their bill. While this boosts CTO profit, it generates negative externalities for everyone else. Number one is safety, it compromises the train stability. Number two is efficiency, in which terminals are clogged with unnecessary double handling of boxes. And number three is revenue, where Indian Railways is bleeding revenue when it should have earned it. As new freight corridors open, the value of this arbitrage could balloon from 1 billion to 1 billion rupees. We are effectively subsidizing this inefficiency.
So, moving on to the model itself, the authors formulated this binary integer programming model called a CTLP. That's basically it means container train load planning. The objective function is straightforward here. Since the revenue from the customer is fixed, our goal is to maximize the profit by strictly minimizing the train charges, the total rail charges paid to the railway. To do this, the model has to make three variable, which is assignment, pattern selection, and positioning. So assignment is like basically which container goes into which wagon. Pattern selection is basically finding which type of container is going. Let's say, for example, is it like one big 40-foot container or two small 20-foot ones. And positioning is basically the most critical one. So whether we predict if the container is going on to the top of the stack or on to the bottom of the stack. Essentially, this algorithm, it acts like a smart swap engine. It continuously exchanges positions, shoving the heavy container to bottom where we pay the full price, and moving the light one or the empty ones to the top where we get 50% discount until it so this runs until it finds the mathematical minimum cost. right? So to the next, we have, so let's look at the solution and final results. Of course, the model should follow strict operation constraints. The most important is safety. The weight of the upper container must never exceed the weight of the lower container. Otherwise, the train also becomes unstable. Also, 20-foot containers are strictly forbidden onto the top stack due to safety regulations. The authors solved this combinational problem using Simplex solver and tested it on 250 real world trains. The advantage over this status quo was clear, while manual planning takes like 5 to 6 hours per train. The model solves it very instantly and found saving that humans usually missed. Specifically, it uncovered an additional of 2.1 savings, which the paper calls it lies like unrealized arbitrage across the network. This also translates to roughly 247 billion rupees in pure profit and improvement. However, this is a critical negative outcome. The study also found that the optimizing for cost, raised the train center of gravity up to 58%. So model is financially successful, but it critiques the current pricing policy for incentivizing operators to build more dangerous top heavy trains just to save up some money. Thank you.
The model is technically strong, but it mainly focuses on reducing rail haulage costs for container train operators. What's missing here is the bigger picture. The model does not directly include safety risks, delivery delays, or congestion at terminals, even though the paper shows that these problems can happen because of arbitrage. It also assumes that operators always have perfect information and that operations always run smoothly. In reality, containers arrive late, weights change, and train schedules are uncertain. Another issue is that the benefits are not balanced across everyone that is involved. The model mainly helps train operators and does not fully consider railways, terminals, or shippers. The paper also does not go deep into how difficult it may be to implement these changes in practice. Now, in terms of how this can be improved, the model could be expanded to look beyond cost and also consider safety and service reliability so that these decisions are better for the whole system. It could also include uncertainty, which would make the model more realistic when information is incomplete or things change at last minute. Finally, instead of changing pricing at all once, a pilot or phased rollout would reduce risk and make it easier for all stakeholders to adopt the new system.
Now, let's look at the system improvements after eliminating position arbitrage. First, operational efficiency improves significantly by removing the financial incentive to rearrange containers just for cost savings. We eliminate unnecessary rehandling and movement within terminals. This reduces both time and cost in container handling. Second, safety is enhanced. The arbitrage encouraged placing heavier containers on top to save money, which raised the train center of gravity and increased derailment risk. Removing this incentive leads to more stable and safer loading configuration. Third, placing becomes transparent and fair. The total haulage cost for a given set of containers is now fixed. It no longer depends on where a container is placed in the train. This simplifies billing and planning for everyone involved. Finally, a service reliability improves. Without the incentive to delay non urgent containers for better pricing in the next train dispatch becomes more consistent, this improves asset utilization and reduces overall system costs for railways, operators, and shippers. Now let's talk about the implementation challenges. However, achieving these improvements comes with its own set of challenges. With first major hurdle is pricing reform. The rail haulage pricing structure needs to be redesigned to remove position based on discounts. But this must be done carefully to ensure revenue stability for Indian Railways and cost predictability for operators. Second, operational adaptation is required. Container train operators and terminal staff must be trained on new loading rules and may need to adapt new software tools for optimal training planning. which involves a learning curve and potential upfront costs. Third, effective implementation requires strong multi stakeholder coordination. Railway CTOs, port operators, and shippers all need to align on the new policies, data sharing, and operational procedures, a complex coordination task. Finally, we must address resistance to change. Some stakeholders may have benefited financially from the old arbitrage system and could be reluctant to adopt the new transparent model. This makes change management and clear communication about long term benefits essential.